Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Britballin. I'm joined by my little angel of the north, Adam Wilkin. How are we doing?
I'm very good, thanks. How's it going to my little Manchester B?
I'm buzzing me, mate. You know that. It's good to be back. Good show tonight. Hopefully, we can get the inside scoop with our BAFA CEO, our King faithful leader, Pete Ackerley, who will be joined by in a minute. But just quickly, whilst I've got everyone's attention, obviously, just a couple of plugs from ourselves. So we've got two things launching in the next couple of weeks, which you can keep an eye out for. So first thing is our Britballin initiative, which is where we are hopefully going to be, well, we've got one confirmed where we're going to be covering, from the funds we've raised from the show, we're going to be covering someone's subs for the full year, hopefully the BAFA fees, etc., etc. So we're just going to trial it this year with one player, and hopefully next year moving forward. And anyone, and that'll be available to people who are, hard of cash, from low income, and can't necessarily afford to play British American football. And hopefully we'll be able to get those guys free stash through our sponsor, EP Sports. Or should I say sponsor, EP Sports. So that should be one to hopefully look out for moving forward. And then secondly, off the back of this week's positive feedback, we're deciding to do a bit of a challenge, aren't we, Adam?
We are, mate. We are. I mean, I'm not looking forward to the month that you've picked, but yeah, let's do it.
So we're going to reach out to everyone in Britball for that you all can possibly to join us. The challenge is going to be fairly simple. It's Britballin's biggest loser, and not just losers. So what this actually is we're going to do a bit of a weight loss challenge. We're going to do players versus coaches. So I'll be captain of the players team through next month. Adam will be captain of the coaches team. So if you're interested in getting involved, shifting some weight, and not be as obese as us two, then you can feel free to join us on that.
Also, if we've got any referees out there that want to come and captain a referees team, give us a shout. We'll sort it out.
Give us a shout, yeah. Anyone involved. But yeah, so we're just gonna we've got 2 free personal trainers who are giving up their time to do strength and conditioning plans for us, and the winner of that will get something like, I don't know, some free personal training, and it'll all be for lifting the lid. We'll be raising money for that. So thanks to everyone involved with that. We're going to lose some weight, raise some money for a good cause, and hopefully we won't be as obese by then, mate.
Yeah, maybe not. I didn't even realise I was.
I mean, I'm happy. That means I've lost weight if I'm just obese. So I'm happy with that. So anyway, so that's our bits out of the way. We are pleased to announce the introduction of Pete. How are we doing tonight, Pete?
We're all good, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Obviously, by the amount of people watching, I think people are very interested as to what you might have to say tonight. I feel like this might be a little bit like Boris Johnson giving his announcement. Kind of, that's the vibes I've got here tonight.
Well, I don't know about that. It's probably a bit more like Boris Johnson when I probably will caveat a load of stuff with things that might happen shortly. But I'll give you as much of the inside track as I can, and explain the whole process we're going through currently. And it's just been. And just before we start, just massive shout out to everybody out there in the community. It's been a long time. Football. I mean. I started this job in sort of October 2019, and a season was just finishing. I didn't think I think it was a GB game against Russia. I thought I might see a few more games other than that, and that was it. That was.
Are you the curse?
The last game
is that what it is, Pete?
It could be me.
It was never meant to happen. It was never meant to happen, Pete.
Yeah, blame me. Yeah, no part of me preparing was thinking, global pandemics. I need to prepare one of those.
I'd love to have seen your interview process. So what do you think about global pandemic? Absolutely nothing. Nothing. I don't think anything of that. Don't worry about that. Never happen.
That'll never happen. Yeah, blimey. So, but one of those things, one of the things I will say out there, it's been a phenomenal effort by so many people. I mean, the volunteers that support me within British American football, from the registrations team to the comms team to the national programs guys, the coaches, the coaches association, the referees. I mean, there's just so many people who are working so hard behind the scenes, and Warren Smart, who's got the gig at the moment of pulling together all of these things that I then say, I think we now need to factor in all of these things into your spreadsheets. Well, good luck. Good luck with that one. It's Yeah, it's well. I said about 3 months ago I'd never use the word unprecedented again, and I'm not but it is just one of those things. There's so many factors and there's still so many factors that are still there and they're live. It's not a perfect plan, and so you're just going in. But I'll give you a bit of an overview in a minute.
I was going to say, come on, let's get to it then. We've got a lot of people watching. I think that the key is, when can the kids play?
Well, that depends where you are, for one. So the added complication of this is, we have to do and look at this from a Scottish point of view, from a Welsh point of view, and from an English point of view. And all three return to plays are slightly different. So we have to factor that in. So, I think the main thing is, the government spring plan was published, sets out a roadmap for, if you like, lockdown easing, as they call it. Now, what that sort of means for us and for our sport is, first and foremost, the well-being of our participants is the absolute central to the decision-making process. We've got to look at protecting as much of the integrity of the game and the competition as we can, in terms of what that looks like. Absolutely paramount is taking away any of the risk factors surrounding the activity, whether that be on the field itself or around the situation. And simply, it's just making sure that you've got the mitigations in place for each home nation, and they're all slightly different. And I think one of the things that I'm buoyed by this time, and by the way, I've been in a few of these situations in the past sort of 12, 14 months where you get a thumbs up and we're back, and it doesn't quite happen as much as you thought it was going to do. I think now, as much as the vaccinations themselves, I had mine a couple of weeks ago, so I managed to get mine. The area where I live, they're starting to know. I think they did all the over 50s by the end of this month.
You're not over 50, Pete. Come on.
Hey,
I'm over kidding.
Very short, 60 very shortly, I'll have, So, but so you've got 40-year-olds now where I am being vaccinated. So you're starting to get that point now where you think the vaccinations is key to the unlocking and the controlled unlocking. So the factors that we've now got to start to think about, and the considerations, is it's different for different formats and different competitions. There's different timelines of what we need to do between Scotland and England and Wales. There's still a whole heap of unknowns, which I'll talk a little bit about as we go through and refer them, because each devolved government's got slightly different scales of when they want to unlock by and how that looks, and that could increase in speed or it could decrease in speed. Cross-border travel, unknown, complete unknown at this stage. The total impact of any new variant, localized regionalization of the vaccine. So all of that is part and parcel of what we have to do. But
let's say that's our asterisk for the day.
Yeah,
that's our massive underlying asterisk. If we play by the rules, nothing else goes wrong. This is the plan,
and not just what we play, but everybody else out there does. So the 29th of March in England, the 29th of March, we can do, as it's called, organised sport. So essentially, and what people may or may not know is, at the end of the day, the government's unlocking plan on the 29th of March is you ordinarily you can meet as a group of 6. Well, that's not much use. So organised sport, we get an exemption. So it means we have a license from government, essentially, to do things slightly differently. So on the 29th of March, I think we could easily go back to stage 4, which is where we were pre-Christmas.
Yeah.
But what we're putting together is a plan to go back at stage 5, which is what we were going to do in January, just as we came back after the new year. That's where we would.
And just remind us what stage 5
So stage 5 means you can start to create a return to modified contact in contact football. So in essence, that's why there's to be 2 very different roadmaps, to flag and to contact. Because for flag, essentially, there's a period of reconnection back with the players and the athletes and getting on a field. because what we can do at stage 5 is we can get 30 people on half a pitch.
Okay.
So that's the size of the group that you can have. There's then a whole heap, and there will be even more protocols we have to put around that. So that's just what we can do on the field. There'll then be a whole range of, this is what you've got to do with the equipment and the balls, and this is what you've got to do when you get there. This is what you've got to do for track and trace and your risk assessments and so on. They'll all be still in place. The good things now, and I think this is where we should take a positive, is outdoors is being shown and being proven as a very much lower risk. So activity outdoors is lower. That's good. The essence of, we always used to, I think Boris called it a ball as being a vector of disease. Well, that's now, and then the equipment. Now we're not stemming down from that. We're still saying there's still got to be extensive equipment wiping and care with that, and that will continue. But actually, that's now been proven.
To be fair, with the ball, a lot of the time, half of the players in Britball can't catch it, so I won't worry too much about that.
Well, hopefully they've been practicing a huge amount at home.
Our views just dropped massively there, by the way.
But that whole point about equipment transmission of touching surfaces, there seems to be a lot more evidence that doesn't last as long as it was at first thought. However, we're going to take a cautious view on that, and we're going to still ensure that there's regular wiping down of equipment and balls. And then what we've looked at from the research in the NFL, rugby league, and rugby union, there haven't been any directly attributable COVID transfers on the field during the contact play. Now, everybody thinks, it's great, we can do what we like. Well, actually, no, you can't, because everything has happened off the field and during and in and around. So we've got to get that balance of making sure we're still safe, people are coming back. And I suppose more than anything, the 29th of March gives us an ability to start getting back together. And people haven't been on a field for, even if you're on a field before Christmas and you were doing some extensive stuff, that's still 3 months. Yeah. Some people will be longer than that. So the condition that people will be in will need. So that's this whole point now is what we're now to start to think about is separate flag to contact return, very much clearly about returning at stage 5 with 30 people with modified contact. And what we're going to do is bring people back gradually. So we're going to give some guidance of, look, you can do this for 2 weeks. And the first 2 weeks, no contact at all. With no contact, it will just be get back on a field and keep your distance, do some fundamentals, get your strength and conditioning. Because at the end of the day, we still can't go in a gym until the 12th of April. So 12th of April is a key date as well. That's when indoors open. So we've still got to get to that factor of gyms being open and people being able to do their lifting. So
I think 99% of people watching will be quite happy just to stand in a field and be able to talk to mates again, if I'm honest.
Well, if there's one thing that, I've said very clearly in terms of our return to play, yes, we want to get back to where we play in our sport. We have to all reconnect. That's got to be the most important thing. Our mental as well as our physical well-being is crucially important. So just getting back together as groups and teams and teammates, and that in itself is going to be important for individuals as well as teams as well as the whole sport. So we've got to ensure that we bring people back safely. And as we bring them back with this guidance, it will be guidance. Because some people say, well, if you do that this week, if you've got 2 weeks of that, then if 2 weeks of the next stage well, that's assuming everybody practices and trains at the same levels and intensities. So some people could get the 3 training sessions done in the first few days, and some would be longer. And so we're going to have to think about this as guidance. We're going to have to think about safety of players and how well they're recovering and when are they ready to move on to the next stage. So all of that's got to be done. So we're looking at doing that and ensuring that people go through stage 5 over probably about an 8 to 9 week period. And certainly,
just did something up there on that stage 5. You said 30 in half a field. So would that be saying you're okay to have 60 on 2 halves of fields?
Exactly. So as long as they're wholly separate groups, And the two groups
like an offense and defense, for example.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. And then within those groups of 30, you can split them out. And I mean, there's loads and loads of really good practice from what people were doing pre-Christmas in terms of those groups. And, you know, depending on how much space you've got, if you've got 2 fields, you could have 120 people, as long as they're in wholly separate groups. The difficulty there becomes the arrival of a lot of people at the same time.
Yeah.
And the protocols you're going to have to put in place to manage all of that process. Because again, one of those unknowns, you know, it's where Boris just still hasn't told us. He's saying you've got to stay local. And no one's defined local to me yet and what that actually means. When people can travel together, can you get a car? You can't car share. There's no guarantees of whether you can and who can travel. So there's a whole range of just practicalities about how people can, and that's going to be very different in Scotland about traveling regionally, and Wales about going in and across borders, and England potentially between different regional areas. So the whole point is that what we've got to try and work out is what can we do to get people back safely and prepared and getting ready to play. I would imagine that realistically our stage 6, which is where we can get back to contact, get to scrimmage and get to, you know, playing formats of the game. Yeah, that's and people are then going to want to play some games for sure. Yeah. That's probably that is going to be sort of end of May, early June.
Yeah.
So what we've tried to do is say, look, realistically, the deadline and the massive date for all of us is the 21st of June, where Boris is saying without restrictions. Yeah. Now, that's still that's still a long way to go to get there. But that's the point at which we could then potentially get into what does a season look like and how do we modify that. So I think what's been really important for me, and one of the key messages I want to get out tonight is Warren has been sending out last few days. It's sent out. It's almost like what's the state of your club and your team and your players, and how many, what they're likely to do, how many are going to come back. Now, and I totally understand people going, well, I don't know if I'm coming back until you tell me what the season. So there's going to be, I'm not going to say I'm coming back until I know what sort of season I'm going to get. And I've got to go, well, I've no idea what sort of season I'm going to be able to provide for everybody until I know how many people I'm providing for. So there's got to be an element here of we're in this together. We are British American football as a family. We all want to play as much football as possible. We want to play as many meaningful games as possible. We want to try and create a structure for our whole season, both for flag and for contact, and for the women's game, ready so we can get as many people back on a field playing as much football safely as possible.
And that's this year to achieve that.
Yeah, and that's what we have to try and do this year. Now, what that's actually finally going to look like in terms of what's the format of the season going to look like and who am I going to be playing and when, I don't know. I'm not saying this to try and fob it off. It will totally depend on people's risk, register. I've got some people who will just be out there going, I don't care. I want to play tomorrow and I want to get stuck. I want to crash people. I want to smash people. I want to go on a field. I'm ready. Yeah. And there's some people who are already saying, I'm not sure I'm ready to come back yet. I'm not sure I'm going to be ready for my own physical well-being, my own mental well-being. I don't know. And then don't get me wrong. The one thing that I'm absolutely bang all over this is people out there will be suffering economically. And, there's no point in everybody just going, well, it's back to normal. It might not be for a lot of people. So we've got to consider that. And that was nice to hear your point you said earlier in the show about trying to support and help people. Now, that's got to also be a factor of how do we create an ability to play games, meaningful games, structured games where people can actually get back to play and afford to play as teams, as individuals, and as a whole league. So they're the crucial factors that we need to look at in the next 2 to 3 weeks about what that actually looks like. Now, I'm committed to making sure that we have meaningful, structured games. The caveat is I don't completely know what the format could look like of the season, because I don't know how many teams we'll have, who can travel, who can't, whether we're allowed to travel, whether we're not, whether we can play cross-border or across regions. So all those factors are things that we've got to bring in. But what I'm absolutely committed to, and we should all be, we want to get back on the field and play some football. The governing body still has to operate. You know, we've made a real clear commitment that if there's a disruption to the season, that we will be looking at refunds. We'll be considering how much those refunds are. We're not looking here to just take money off people. We have to create a structure of income, because the only income this governing body has is from its members and from its membership. Now it's starting to diversify, but we're not there yet. So that's our only income. And the governing body, if it's still to be here for season 2022, so it can create everything that everybody wants for 2022 and beyond, and to deliver a 10-year vision, whether we want all our coaches developed, whether we want our GB teams and our programs developed, and whether we want to create and recruit more and more players into all formats of the game, the governing body is going to have to be around to do that. So what people actually do, and within the structure of our game, is you're contributing to the governing body to deliver all of the factors around the game, and that's what I'm committed to, is professionalizing this game on and off the field to inspire more people to play their part. Now, that's about being inclusive. It's making the game accessible. It's about putting the player at the center of every decision we make, and every decision we're going to make about this return to play is about the players, about their returning safely and being able to play as much football as either they want or that they require. And one of the things that we're going to be able to do in 2022 is we're going to try and extend the season as far as we possibly can, because later this year. So later this year, if the science follows and the vaccine goes and the return to easing from lockdown continues and the rates remain low, gives us opportunities to do more meaningful opportunities for play later in the year. Rather than be constricted completely by, here's what we're going to do and it's going to look like this, because that might change as well, by the way. So we're going to have to be agile and flexible about what that looks like. So I'm also cognizant of the state of finances in the clubs, the state of finance of the teams, how much people want to travel, how much people want to invest in their games, and that will be different in different teams and different areas. So everybody, it's out there now. We're trying to find out what do everybody think about returning safely, the sort of state of readiness in their clubs and their players and their teams. And that's the big plea I want to make tonight. Get that feedback into us. It's Warren has sent it out to all the clubs. Get it into your coaches and your admins at the clubs, so we can start to understand what the scale and scope of the season could actually look like and will look like. But absolutely committed. We're going to get people back on the field on the 29th. There's going to be a gradual increase in what they can do. There's every reason we can get contact by the end of May, as in scrimmaging and contacts, as long as
intern teams. In your own team, so offense versus defense.
In your own team to start with, Mike. To start with, and then we'll start to be able to open that up towards the end of May, early June, to be able to scrimmage or play against other teams locally.
Maybe locally.
Maybe locally. So again, and that what happens locally and what defines local. And that could be different between Wales and Scotland and England. Yeah. So we have to sort of factor all that in. And I think by trying to extend the season a little bit, looking at different and more meaningful additional opportunities to play is what we'll look to do. But absolutely listening to the players. Now, I've had a couple of conversations. I want back to a season that was in 2019, home and away, full on playoffs, I want a final, I want a Britball, and I want everything exactly as it was.
You did say, Pete, you weren't going to share our conversation we had.
And you've got the other end of the scale. Got people going, I'm really not sure whether I want to play a full season, but I'd like to play really quite locally, maybe in my region or, you know, in the south or just the north or the Midlands. And I don't really want to travel too far. So you've got everything from that. And also people, it's not for me.
Yeah.
It's not for me this year. I'm going to, and now I've said a lot there, and I've said all of that. All of this is then dependent of, have we got all our facilities available?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I suppose the later we go there, we start encroaching into that soccer and rugby season and facility hire and stuff like that becomes a bit of an issue.
And that's important. So I'm having conversations at the moment with the rugby union, the rugby league, football, as in the FA, and looking at Fs, because guess what? They haven't played either.
Yeah.
And they're going to want to play more of their sport.
Yeah.
So we've got that to balance and
fine balance.
So how can we all work collectively and collaboratively to make we all get an opportunity to play? And that's a big factor in what we're doing as well. So that's all the sort of like the main things. I think Flag will be able to play pretty much back to normal, as in they'll be able to play their games. The difference for Flag will be the scale, and for contact for that matter, is how many people you can get at a gathering at any one time. If government suddenly say, look, we don't want large gatherings, you know, we don't want hundreds of people in the same venue until much later in the year, then we're going to have to organise and structure things around there. But again, I think we'll be in a position to get, you know, some full contact by midsummer. We can then go and play. It's then a question of how many weeks is there going to be to get all those games in. So we're just trying to have to focus on as many meaningful opportunities as possible, subject to being able to move around and subject to people wanting to play and wanting to be a part of a season. But, you know, September 2019 is a long time ago.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's get people playing. But let's make it meaningful for those that want it to be meaningful games. That we need to do that. And again, that thing I said at the front about the integrity of our game. You know, we don't. You know, someone said, "Oh, we'll just play really local teams." And I said, "Well, what if you've got a team who's top of the Prem and your local team is a Div 2 team?" And that's not appropriate. That's not appropriate. So,
I'd pay to see it if I'm honest. I'd pay to see it.
We've got to balance that competitiveness and meaningful competition of people, but it's proper competitive football, and the participation element of getting people back on a field and prepared and ready to play further down the line.
There's one group of people that I think's massive, and I think a lot of other people say is massive in our sport that I don't think we've touched on yet, and that's the referees. I think is there a way that we can sort something out to invite referees down to training to keep up with fitness or something, because they're missing a lot of the social aspect as well. I mean, don't get us wrong, I know that they're getting grief sometimes on the field, but it's that social aspect, that fitness aspect, that's something I think we should look at, if I'm honest.
And I suppose they have to travel probably a little bit more than most.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting because I've been working closely with the referees as well. We've been developing the 10-year vision and the strategy, and you know, as it says, they're raring to go and they're doing their own stuff individually. But again, the impact of the return to play about with referees, because we've then got to balance all those things I've just talked about, and then what if we can't get movement around? The referees are based where they're based, and they are where they are. So we've got to think of those aspects as well. But hey, we're all part of the same family here, and we've got to get everybody back safely, everybody back together, and creating our game and getting it back on a field and playing meaningful football.
So two things that are really coming out here, Pete, in the comments. We're not going to pull them up as such, but one is the important question of 2020 fees that was paid previously. Are they carried over to 2021?
They're not carried over. No, you have to register again. They're not nothing carried over. What we then do with 2021 fees. The actual what people spent their money on has been carried over, and we've invested in coaching, we've invested in development of the game, we've invested in a whole heap of stuff around the governing body to be able to make the governing body better at what we do and what we can create. But 2021 fees start again at the now. And by the way, we've got a large group of people who've already registered because they were practicing before lockdown and training before lockdown, so they've already paid. So you've got a group of people who've already paid for 2021. You've got a much larger group who have not yet paid. Now, if they want to get on a field to train and play, to be covered and making sure they're playing under the governing body's return to play guidance, they have to be a member of the governing body to do that, and under the structure that we've got in place, that's the government guidelines, then they need to pay that. What we're now saying is what we do with 2021 fees is if there's a significant season of meaningful football, that's what you have and that's what you're investing in. And don't forget, you're not just paying your membership fee to cover an insurance cover. It's not. Oh
no, we don't talk insurance, Pete. We don't talk insurance.
Yeah, we don't do that on there.
I'm just saying that's what I get thrown at me all the time. You're paying for the sport to be organised and run in England, Scotland, and Wales for GB, for coaching, for refereeing, for the game to operate, for us as a governing body to do the things we all want to do to progress the sport. All that money is invested into that, and we will continue to do that. What we've said is what we need to look at is what is the meaningful value of what we've offered in terms of football to people. And at the end of the day, I totally understand people who go, that offer's not for once that's published. And in terms of dates, the 22nd next Monday is the crucial date.
Yeah.
Because that's when the government say the 29th of March is definitely a goer, because the schools haven't had a big impact on rates. The rates are still falling. Vaccines are still working. So we're in a good place on the 22nd of March. We can then progress. So we can go back on it.
And I think that's really key. I mean, one of the things, whether you're carrying over or not, which is not the case, I think it's just the clarity, which is really important that you've given there. Look, 2021, you pay your fees, and hopefully we'll have some sort of season. Adam, I think you had a question.
Yeah, I've got it'll be the last one, Pete, because I know that you've got to.
Oh, I've got one more. Sorry.
I'll go on then, mate. I'll let you go first because I want to.
Right, I was going to say all stars align, Pete. June 21st. Boris says we're all well on track. You know, our devolved nations we're all singing off the same hymn sheet. Do you think from that point on we could have a full 2019 standard season with protocols in place like we've had before, as long as we stay on track and follow the rules?
To get an absolute 2019 season as directly, that's going to be a challenge. That would be challenging. I'm not holding anything back from it. That would be challenging. I don't say it can't. It just means it will be challenging. What we have to look at is what else could that look like to make sure it's, and I come back to that, as meaningful as possible. So, you know, I'm not about saying, oh, do you know what, we'll just have a couple of friendlies and that'll do. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm making sure let's get everybody back. And don't forget, the 21st of June, we can play. Doesn't mean everyone will be ready to play, whether that be physically, mentally, economically, socially. So that 21st of June is just the date at which we could, or it'd be the weekend after, we could actually play some structured, formal, focused competition. Now,
outside of local.
Yeah. So what I will say is, I don't know, I think I've got about 8 scenarios here on this is what that 2021 season could look like. So it's not as if we're going, oh, well, let's see what everybody says and then we'll make one up. We've got 8, maybe 8 different versions of what that could look like to try and ensure that our members get meaningful competition, they get back, reconnect, we get back on a field, and we get back to playing this game that we all love.
Perfect.
So the last question from me, Pete, is if everything goes to plan, Boris says, yes, he's allowed to do everything that he's won. Could we possibly see a North v South game at some point? Because me and Mike, we joined up with the X's and O's and we put together an all-star list. Do you think that is a possibility in the near future?
Well, I said earlier, and I don't have a list of here's some other meaningful opportunities and additional games that we could play. I've not got a list of them. I've just put that on. I've put it on my list. I don't know what that would look like, and I don't know if it will happen, but that's exactly the sort of thought processes we're going to have to start to think about and continue to think about as things develop very well or not so well. And I don't even want to think about that. I'm not even concentrating.
No negative, positive vibes only.
All positive.
Right, so just to summarise for everyone watching, just before I do let you go, just so I make sure I'm relaying your message back. So if I've taken it, hopefully everyone else can. So 29th of March, we're hopefully going to be able to do stage 5, which is 30 people on half a side of the field. And that can be like indies install kind of situation, but no contact against other people as such. Going to review that after a couple of weeks and see if we can move further along into stage 6, where we could potentially do some local games and stuff like that, and local internal training sessions. Is that right? Yeah,
it's just basically the stage 5 is just incrementally increasing the amount of contact that you can take and building up that gradually. And some people will do that quite quickly. Some people will do that much more slowly. But giving everybody that ability to stage and phase, and we'll be supporting that from the Coaches Association, saying, here's some ideas. It's what you should be thinking about. It's what you should be doing. Our science and medicine team are publishing all sorts of return to play guidance. We've got our app with Archon where people have started getting combine ready and training, and here's some competitive. So we're trying to make sure you get everybody as ready as possible, because ultimately we've just got to get back and reconnect, but then we've got to start to develop, because I'm not just looking at 2021, or that's my absolute focus right now. I'm looking at what's British American football going to look like in 2024, 25, 26.
Sean in the comments just asked, is the 27th of March the same for Wales and Scotland?
29th.
No, sorry. I was just gonna talk about that just before I finish. When I say the 29th of March, that's England only. So what we've had, we've put out, it's on our website. There's some very specific guidance come out tonight from Wales, which is just about young people being able to return. In Scotland, we've got an ability to return in small groups of up to 15 at the moment. So you've got a group of up to 15 on a half pitch. That can happen. So their timings are subtly different. That's all. So with Scotland, it's from the 12th. Well, from the 12th of March. So and that's my point before. I was just saying, it's very specific to your home country. So Scottish team, you're right. You're right now. You can get back on the 12th of March with groups of 15, but there's social distancing. There's no contact. So what you've actually got to start to think about is it's not as simple as that's what you can do. You can do whatever you like. Please, please, please follow the detailed guidance that we've published in each of the home countries' return to play. It's all on our website. It's really clear. There's roadmaps for Scotland and England. The Wales one we're just building that one at the moment, because Wales are they returning. So you can go get your hair cut in Wales, but you can't do anything else. But that will start to change. So they'll be changing their focus every 4 weeks. So we've got to keep Wales a very different roadmap to Scotland and a very different roadmap to England.
Last one, Pete, and I will let you go straight after this one.
No problem.
Could you give a good luck shout out to the 4 guys doing the CFL Global Draft next month, please?
Oh, well, big shout out. The guys we've been involved in working very closely with all 4 guys. We've been working with the CFL. They're going to be in great condition. I just cannot wait to watch them do it. It's going to be different. It's going to be virtual, but we're going to support the guys in every way we can to make sure that they're there, they're ready to give their best shot. I know they are. I know they're ready. And do you know what a great advert for our game that will be if guys. But very best of luck. They won't. It's not because they haven't been preparing. It's not because they haven't been trying. They are going to be in great condition. They're going to be doing the British game incredibly proud. And the Brits are coming.
And I suppose, like I said, before you go, potentially in a couple of weeks, then we learn more. I'm sure by the amount of people watching tonight, we'd love to have you back on and just keep us updated with where that is, because I think the most important thing really that jumps out for me there is we want to play football. You guys want us to play football. We want to see if we can make football happen this year as best as we can.
Exactly that.
And I really don't envy your job. Like, honestly, you got a hard job, mate.
Come on, Pete, pull your finger out, get it sorted, mate.
I'll do my best I can. But thank you, guys.
Yeah, that's it. Get those scenarios done for us, lad.
Okay, I appreciate everything you're doing for the game as well. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it.
Cheers, Pete.
Thank you
very much, mate. Cheers. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Perfect. So,
that's loads to review, though, really, isn't it? That means we're nearly back.
It means we're nearly back, yeah, exactly. So, from what I'm hearing there, 29th would be some sort of meaningful. We get on a field, get to see our mates again. I think the key what stood out for me, and I didn't want to really say while Pete was on there, but this is ours. He said there we got a special exemption as football. And my most important message to everyone is literally, I'll say it, don't fuck it up. Like, we get that opportunity to go out, be with our mates, have some sort of football, have the laugh, have the joke. But again, we've got that license where nobody else in the country has. A lot of people will just be, you're not allowed to over 6 people. So the fact that
they've grafted their backside off for us to get this, though. Do you know what I mean? Like, we can see that. Look at all the effort that's gone in. We've got emails coming out of clubs. Not only I got one for youth, I got one for junior. Then the adult team, we got one. Just fill them in, let them know what stage we can get back to. Do you know what I mean? Like, give them a hand. Like, we've had it in the past where we've had teams not fill out information, so we don't even know if they want to play that season. Like, just get it done. If you guys are watching here, tell your coaches, tell your committee members, let's get this done and give them a hand and give her a chance to getting back to some football.
Because to me, it shows there's a plan. 29th, we get back on the field. Who knows? You could be scrimmaging as early as, I think, what was that? 9 weeks from then. So May, we could ideally be scrimmaging against other teams. I mean, I'd be frothing at the bit.
Nice weather.
I know.
Oh,
yeah.
Get me some sun, Sam. I cannot wait.
It's a great point, Sam. 22nd, he said, there'll be a key date from government standpoint. Again, once we get those final updates from Pete, I'm sure, as he said there, he'll come back on, discuss that with us. And hopefully, fingers crossed, it all sounds positive from me. I don't know about you. It sounds positive.
Mate, I'm honestly, I can't wait. I'm like honestly ready to go.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Right, okay, so like I said, what we'll do is we'll wrap up there. I think we'll leave it with that. We won't digress too much. But whilst we've got you all, if you want to get involved with Britballin's Biggest Loser, so you want to shift some weight to help 2 obese coaches / players, Adam's going to be the captain of
doesn't even have
team.
to just be weight. I'm going a whole hog. I'm going to tell everyone now. I'm putting this out there live on the internet now. I'm going to quit smoking, mate. I'm doing everything. Life changed a lot. So if you want to come and support that as well, come join us.
The minimum you have to do, as you were watching the show, is put your hand in your pocket and give us a couple of quid to lift in the lid, which again, and then finally, we are pleased to announce, obviously, Pete mentioned there a lot about financials. We are launching our Britballin initiative this year, probably try with 1 player, depending on how things go. But that'll be a full ride for that person, liaising with clubs in terms of negotiating fees, etc., to help them get to play this year when they might not have. And then next year, hopefully a couple more.
Sam,
just in case.
I will. I promise I will. Watch.
So a couple of things positive coming out of this. So we're really happy to help people with low income. If you need anything at all, reach out to us. There's always maybe something we can do. Reducing something or anything. That's the plan of the show.
Even if you just want to have a chat, let's just talk. You know what I mean? We're open. If you need to approach us, then just give us a shout.
I'm not.
Don't even lie.
Adam's nice. Adam's nice. I'm not.
No, but thanks very much, guys. Thanks for watching.
Cheers for watching. Thank you very much.
See you for next week.
Yeah, see you next week.
If you want to get notified when we go live, hit the exclamation point notify, and we'll see you next week.
That was rough.
Oh, beautiful. Take care, guys.